Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
The eyes of the wider sporting world are focused in the area of the Eiffel Tower. You'll know what I'm talking about. We, though, are virtually in the region of the Eiffel Mountains on the wonderful Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit for our fourth event, the end of which will see us reach the halfway point in the current campaign for the virtual reality racing club Cupra Cup. Welcome along to Nurburgring to my fellow commentator, Reeve Taylor. Good to see you, Reeve. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Slightly in disbelief that, as you say, are halfway through the championship already.
It's gone really quick, hasn't it? We've got 5 more events to go, including today, which we're looking forward to. This wonderful, wonderful track. Few international circuits that I've been to, and I think you're going to give us a run through of what we've had and what we could expect over the next couple of weeks.
I am, absolutely, Richard. So it all started at Pascani Motor Park just a few weeks ago before moving on to Barcelona, and then last week, of course, was the Donington circuit. This week it is the Nurburgring GP track, perhaps slightly less infamous than its larger sibling, the Nordschleife, but still a fantastic racing circuit. Next week, we'll be heading to the Lime Rock Park circuit in the US of A before staying there for Laguna Seca the week after that. Round 7 brings us back to Europe for the Assen TT circuit, providing back over the Atlantic actually for Virginia International to round out what is already shaping up to be a fantastic season.
Yeah, we know what's coming up after that, don't we, in the next series? But we're not allowed to say that yet. You'll have to wait with bated breath to find out when the next series, what the next series is and where it is going to go. We had a mega week last week with some very eventful racing. The third place on points last weekend was Johnny Ogden, 9th and 1st in his 2 races. Josh Martin, very consistent, very fast last week at Donington Park, a 5th and a 2nd, and a double podium for round winner once again. Eric Axelsson taking his third win of the campaign, unbeaten so far in both qualifying and also race ones. If you're just joining us for the first time, if you are in that boat, a very warm welcome along. You're very welcome. Tell your friends, get some more viewers to come along. Maybe we'll get some more drivers involved as well. I know that this was pretty much capacity, but always keen to welcome new drivers to Virtual Reality Racing Club. That was our top last week. We need to have a look at the table. Eric Axelsson, unsurprisingly, given the results, he's had 7 points clear. 2 drop rounds, remember, from the 8 events. Brad Smith is in second from Scott Bugner. Scott, top of the testing times so far today. We'll come to that once qualifying coverage gets going. Josh Martin 4th from Adam Lyle and Andy Dorman. Johnny Ogden 7th, then Craig Curtis and Joel Last, top 10 completed by Smith. Thomas Potter is 11th, and remember that's pretty impressive from Thomas because he was deputised, wasn't he, for the first event and only got half points in that first event. I guess that can count as perhaps a drop, but just outside the top 10 at the moment, Mr. Potter. Andy Carroll hot on his heels, followed by Chris Blakey. Alec Iyengar, sadly, not with us. He's got other commitments now, so won't see out the championship, unfortunately, but we look forward to welcoming him back to VRRC in the near future. Lee Piercy and Sam Milner, 15th and 16th, ahead of Olivia Krasnowska, who is the Scottish lass. Might see her this week as we're heading up to Knockhill for touring cars. Darren Butler, not with us either this week. Wish him well. Picked up a bit of a knock. I understand he's 18th from Alex Walker and Paul Laramie in 2 on 5 points. The other fivers, as it were, Kenny Press and Catherine Potter, who's now racing in her own right, having deputised for the Teapot at the first event of the season. And the other driver in the positive point scores is 639 John Jones in the Shadowline Racing entry. Matt Smith on 0, and negatives for Sam Walton and Mark Stokes. So that sets us up for today's race on the Nurburgring GP. As you say, not quite as iconic as the Nordschleife, but a splendid venue nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely. All 3.2 miles of this 15-corner track. Going to be a little bit higher speed, perhaps, than what we've been used to so far, with some slower points as well. The first corner, the tight right-hander, is going to be a pinch point on track. Perfect overtaking opportunity potentially as well. Watch out for turn 7, turn 10, turn 13 and turn 15 as well. I'm not going to try and pronounce some of these corner names, but it should be a great venue for some classic touring car racing.
I picked up an extra corner somewhere because my track map goes up to 16. It does depend where you pick up the circuit information from. The management at Nürburgring tend to get the corners sponsored, as indeed a lot of tracks do now. Good bit of income for the local circuits. We've got Eric Axelsson, who's put together a hot lap for us, and that will give us a little guide to what the circuit looks like for today's event. So let's ride on board with the man who is currently second fastest in the testing for today. So here we are, Eric Axelsson. You won't need introducing to that livery. He's been out at the front for much of the season so far, coming down the main straight in towards the right-hand hairpin, the Castrol S turn, curve 1. That will bring them then in towards the Mercedes arena, heading down towards turn 2, which they go into now in the arena. Then it is out to turn 3. They'll switch back here. You can see a little bit of gradient here on the infield. It's actually, believe it or not, I'm going to brag about it. It's the only Grand Prix circuit that I've actually done a race on and done reasonably well, I'm pleased to say. This is turn 4, coming out now down the RTL straight, heading towards the left-hander, which on my map is turn 6, Valvoline sponsored, then round to Ford curve, turn 7, and then we can go pretty much flat, a curve around towards the left, or left-handed curve, or arc as they would probably translate it from German, down to turn 8, the Dunlop curve, which is very, very tight indeed. This is the outer reach of the circuit and brings us now, we come into the zone where we're heading back towards ultimately the start-finish line, now into the Michael Schumacher S curves, and then down towards, you can see slightly up, saying down, but we're going uphill now, and towards turn 10 or 11, depending on your count. And this is the Michelin curve. And then round to the right-hander at Warsteiner. Always remember the Warsteiner livery on the Arrows Formula One cars, the lovely gold livery back in the day. Now we're coming down into, this is definitely an arc, the Hatzenbach corner. Hatzenbach, a key feature of the Nordschleife. If you've not done that one, I've been privileged to drive that one as well and thoroughly enjoyed it. Then we come through into the NGK chicane, which will bring us down towards the last corner on the circuit, Coca-Cola curve 16. If things aren't bubbling up already, they will be by the time they get to the next corner because it's an overtake at the end of the straight. But that is Eric Axelson's lap. And another good hot lap, 2:03.13, compares with Scott Bugner's testing time of 2 minutes 2.814. That's going to be our bench qualifying. And Rich Hayden was telling us that Scott didn't think he'd got that lap in him again, so maybe peaked a bit early. We'll see how Scott does in qualifying. And it's going to be a little bit of a lottery. Can anybody knock Eric Axelson off of his qualifying perch, winning perch this evening here on the Nurburgring? Let's see. I'll get the thoughts of Reeve. Do you think anyone's up to the task of beating Eric this evening?
Certainly, I think anyone is in with a decent shout. If out of any opportunity, tonight is a night. I think we've got the likes of Scott Bugner, as you mentioned, Andy Carroll as well, looking strong here this evening. You know, usually we see Eric Axelson keep a few tenths under his belt when he shows us these hot lap videos. You know, already in practice he will have been it usually, but that is not the case so far. He's not actually been able to meet that time by the looks of things. It's Scott Bugner currently on provisional pole by a good few tenths of a second. So while he's not quite met that 202.8, he's got very close indeed with the 203 flat. That's far more comfortable than perhaps we've seen so far this season in terms of qualifying delta.
Yeah, Scott, a quick racer. He's had 3 podia so far, and Eric Axelson, 4th position thus far. We'll see what he clocks up as he goes over the line, whether he can improve. He does, he goes into 2nd, 4th would not be an issue for Eric, the Flying Swede, because we know he can overtake. We've seen it on the reverse grid races, and, you know, absolutely superb last week, coming through from 15th on the grid up onto a podium slot, ultimately 3rd position, his result. As we have a look at the field, Scott Bugner still there from Eric Axelson, Andy Carroll 3rd, and Craig Curtis in 4th place with 4 minutes remaining. There is Craig Curtis. Craig having missed the first weekend at Pascani, but since then has been pretty consistent, very quick at Donington Park with a 2nd position, first podium of the campaign after qualifying in 8th place. So made it from 8th to 2nd. A lot of progress for Craig Curtis there. So, and he's qualifying well again now and splits Axelson and Bugner to go into P2. Great lap.
Yes, absolutely. Bugner looks like he's still improving at this point in time. Not so quick through the first sector, but purple through the middle sector. It's a very important middle sector here as well. In fact, all 3 of them really quite important. We're on board at the moment with Olivia. She's putting pressure on the car up in front. That is Alex Walker. They're going to be side by side, getting some action here in qualifying already. That's what we'd like to see. Only a few minutes left of this slightly truncated qualifying session because we were discussing all of the little intricacies of this longer Nürburgring circuit. As we go on board with Scott Bugner, he's just gone purple once again and crossed the line to take a slightly improved lap here now. It's a 202.9, so he is into that all-important 202 range that we discussed earlier.
I've got to say, I felt this was coming from Scott Bugner because I know what he's like in MG. He's had the pleasure of watching him and commentating on him at live circuit for real, and he's a quick peddler, and he just seems to get quicker and quicker and stronger, and I thought that would be the case here. So he may well be, I don't want to put the curse of the commentator on him, but are we going to see a first win for him? The thing we do know is that he's going to have some very stiff competition out there come the race start, but pole position is exactly where you need to be, as Eric Axelson has proved, as we pick up on Andy Dorman, double race winner, reverse grid at Pascani, won the reverse grid race at Barcelona as well. Andy in 6th place at the moment, and that's his 3rd best out of 4 qualifying, so he'll be frustrated with that. 5th in event 1, 3rd qualifying for event 2, and 13th place last week. So I guess qualifying wise, getting his act together a little bit in this one, chasing Chris Blakey at the moment, who is 5th. Andy Carroll next up. When do I need to start writing times down? Got about 2 minutes 29 on the clock. And those of you that are regular viewers will know that as soon as I start writing these grid positions or potential grid positions down, we'll know that they then change. So
Sorry, Scott
Bugner will probably, you won't want me to write Scott Bugner pole, so I'm going to do it from 6 upwards. By the time I get to pole, maybe it'll be okay.
Yeah, as you say, Scott Bugner, definitely almost a rising star, although he's had plenty of success in the past. In this championship, at least, we've always had this slight impression that he's got confidence in the car, and he's certainly quick, but we've just seen him gradually improve. But as you say, we've also seen that from Craig Curtis as well. So I think turn 1, race 1 here at the Nurburgring GP circuit is going to be particularly interesting, even more so than usual. We've seen so many an instant in sim racing at that downhill, tight, fold back first corner, and it is going to be, I think, potentially an important run into the first corner this evening.
I think you're absolutely right. Now, the sad thing is I've actually done the top 6 in reverse, and I got to Scott, so we'll see what changes. Normally we get somebody with a late on go at it, as we watch Chris Blakey in the black and gold top car, a little bit like a Duracell livery, isn't it, really? As Andy Carroll in the Key Point Intelligence machine in P4. Outside the top 6, we got Thomas Potter and Josh Martin, Johnny Ogden 9th, Catherine Potter in 10th. There was talk about the reverse. Now, I haven't checked out regulations, but are we still on top 15 reverse, or is it going down? Top 12 reversed. Thanks, Rich. I don't know if you're live where the was just coming this way. Rich just feeding us that information on top 12 reverse rather than 15. A few people on, as we said, with injuries or holiday or work or otherwise, which is a shame. Aaron Lask, by the way, is could have been deputising tonight, but he isn't, which is a shame. I'd like to have seen Aaron have another go. Maybe we can get him in as a racer on his own right. Aaron had 13th and 10th last week, deputising for his brother Joel, who sadly again isn't with us this week. But Joel, remember, double podium finisher so far with 7 seconds on the clock. Scott Bugner still there from Craig Curtis, Eric Axelson in 3rd, Andy Carroll in 4th, Chris Blakey and Andy Dorman. Top 6 relatively settled over the last few minutes there, Reeve.
Yes, absolutely. Scott seems to have drawn a nice, comfortable few tenth margin earlier on in the session and has maintained that, as it turns out. It was getting very, very close indeed, though, further down. Craig Curtis, Eric Axelson, covered by only 0.02 of a second. And then you've got Andy Carroll only a few hundredths behind that as well. Scott Bugner, just to add insult to injury there to everyone else, purple in the final sector, goes 202.8, finds another 10th there. That is, I think, a show of force there, a show of confidence as we head into this first race.
Yeah, that wasn't far off the time that he did in testing pre the event starting. So just a couple of hundredths off, which is a remarkable performance and sets down a marker, doesn't it, for everyone else? But wonderful to see a different front row. So it's Scott and Craig, Scott Bugner, Craig Curtis, Eric Axelson in P3, Andy Carroll P4, Chris Blakey P5, then Andy Dorman P6, Thomas Potter and Josh Martin next up. You can't discount any of those. We've got last week's race winner Johnny Ogden in 9th and Lee Pearcey, who's a race winner in the club before as well, in 10th place. So it is an incredibly strong lineup, and when you can pick any one of the top 10 for a potential win, we know we're in for a treat. 11th is Catherine Potter, still learning her way. Olivia Krasnowska in 12th place from Alex Walker, and then Sam Walton, John Jones, Mark Stokes, Kenny Press completing our qualifiers. Let's take a quick break and we'll have some interviews for you in just a minute or so.
Well, thank you to our sponsors and a congratulations to our drivers. Our top 3 from qualifying with us now for some interviews. Let's hear from our quickest drivers from session. In 3rd place, it was Eric Axelsson, perhaps a little bit unfamiliar in this position at this point. Eric, still 2nd row on the grid though. How was it out there?
I mean, I did what I could. Scott and Scott and Craig, they were so fast tonight. So yeah, I have to settle for 2nd row.
So they were looking fast, but did you still feel like you had a decent amount of pace in you? Was the car feeling good still?
Yeah, the car is good. I wasn't in any traffic or anything, so I can't blame that. My personal best is something like a 2.8, just like Scott, but just wasn't able to pull it out in the quali. So yeah, well done, Scott.
So does that give you a little bit of confidence heading into the race then, that you're still going to be fighting for this win?
I mean, this one, I think this one will be tough, especially with T1 at the Nurburgring is always interesting. But I'm sure that it will be a good race.
It certainly will be. How did you find this track as well? It's perhaps a little bit different to the tracks we've been at so far this season. Your thoughts here at the Nurburgring?
Yeah, it's probably my favorite track this far. I like the super hard braking zone into T1, and just a little slower than last week, and lots of space. And I think there will be a lot of side-to-side close racing. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am likewise, and glad to see your spirits still looking pretty high after what must feel like for you, I suppose, a disappointing qualifying, if you will, but you're still out there in the lead of this championship with a decent number of points. Are you thinking much about your position in the championship after we're getting close now to the halfway stage of this championship?
I mean, not really. I know I had 3 pretty good rounds, so it's nice to have them in the bag. Maybe I can relax a little now, but yeah, we'll see. I still need to, to end up on the podium, I think. So yeah, I will fight for it still.
Glad to see that you're still looking forward to the weekend racing. Thank you very much, Eric. And we're going to have a chat now with Richard and our driver from P2.
I tell you what, this guy labels himself rather tongue-in-cheek as Craig out of talent. Curtis very clearly not out of talent, because P2, not a bad start to the evening, Craig.
Yeah, not a bad start at all. To be honest, I wasn't expecting the front row or anywhere near the front row earlier this evening. Going from the weekend, doing practice, I was doing, I think, 203.1s, and I think I've had an extra 10 kilos of ballast on now, so it's been weird to get the grips with it this evening. But yeah, I managed to get just ahead of Eric by a couple of thousand, so every little helps, as they say. So yeah, it's going to be a fun run down into the turn 1 with Scott and Eric. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's a mega run, isn't it, down there? A great little track. But yeah, racing-wise, plenty of overtaking opportunities here, because it is that sort of current spec GP circuit. And funnily enough, I've never sort of been to a Grand Prix at the Nurburgring, but I've commentated on a few club races there. Have you raced this in other configuration cars?
No, just I think we did a couple of races with VRRC a while back, maybe a couple of warm-up races. But yeah, obviously the F1 games over the years, and just know the layout like the back of my hand. But getting it used to with these cars, the front-wheel drives, it takes a couple of hours to get used to.
And the tone of that session, I mean, the last few laps, or the last few minutes of the qualifying session, everything seemed relatively settled. I mean, Scott put, I think, a quick time in towards the end, but you split Scott and Eric about mid-session there. So if you're aware of, going up into P2 about them, but everything seemed to settle down then. Is that how you see the race going?
Hopefully. I'm hoping, to finish at least in the top 3, but we got the guys behind as well, Andy and Chris. So don't never discount those guys. And like I said, it's all down into turn one. So if we can avoid, the inevitable carnage, normally the reverse grid stuff, but yeah, if we manage to get it through the first lap, then yeah, we'll hopefully try and work on the race pace.
That'd be good. I'll tell you what. I mean, I said it in qualifying, but it's not soft soap or anything else. Genuinely, in that top 10, all of the drivers in the top 10 are capable of wins. So it's going to be fascinating to see. Great, well done on P2. Good luck for the race, and hopefully we'll chat to you on the podium afterwards. Our fastest man is up next, and let's hand back to conduct that chat.
Thank you very much, Richard and Scott, on the top step here as we head into race one, pole position. How are you feeling after that session?
A bit hot and sweaty. It was. I said to Eric before the qualifying, I've done the 0.8, and it was like a one-off lap. Just managed to pull it out the bag and nail it just. But yeah, I'm happy, but I cannot get these things off the line. I always seem to bog down. So I should think I'll have a green machine beside me before I get to turn one.
I wouldn't be too surprised, but I'm certainly rooting for you. I mean, you mentioned the heat. At least it's a little bit cooler this time around. I think last week was particularly warm, so hopefully it should be a little bit more comfortable in the sim rig. And you say you weren't sure you were going to be able to replicate that 202.8. You obviously did in the end. Is there anywhere in particular you thought that you found that extra time, or is it just confidence in the car and the track?
I think it was just getting some clean air and backing away from other cars and putting my head down for one lap and nailing it. I think, I won't be able to do them sort of times consistently, but I think in the race, if I can do a 3 dead and 3.1, I think we'll sort of be there or thereabouts up there. So, but it's not going to be easy because Craig's super fast, and Eric and my old teammate Andy, I'm going to try and get him to get in front of Eric and back him up a little bit. If me and Craig can drive off into the distance, would be lovely, but I'm sure it won't be as easy as that.
I like they're already thinking about the team game this early on before the race even starts. And in terms of the race then, do you know how the car's going to be feeling heading into the race? Obviously a little bit more fuel on board, got to think about the tyres as well. Is the car a bit more set up for quali, do you think, or have you got a setup in the bank ready for the races coming up?
Honestly, I've not done a race run on fuel, so it could be fun, but I'll see how it feels for the first 2 laps, and then if it don't feel great, I'll be white lining and being the cork in the bottle for the whole race, hopefully.
And we've seen so far this championship. We've been saying how we can tell you're certainly a quick driver. You know your front wheel drive cars very well, and you've always had decent results. But it seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And as we head into the halfway stage of this championship, do you feel like you are in with a shout later on? Do you feel like this is something that you can certainly fight for the top step in terms of the championship standings?
Yeah, but you don't think about it this early on. I think it's all about just getting the points. Donington, what I thought was going to be my best round, was probably my worst. So yeah, it's just getting the points in and just making sure you come in the top 5 or 6 in the first race, and make sure you don't get caught up in the carnage in race 2. But yeah, fingers crossed this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and best luck for those races. Now you've got a couple of minutes until lights out, so I'm going to let you go, but congratulations on pole once again.
Thank you.
That was a chat with our scoring drivers in qualifying, at least, as we get ready to head into race 1 in just a moment.
Yeah, really looking forward to it as ever. It's the more races that I do, it's more fun as well. I'm getting to know everybody and getting to sort of appreciate the narratives of the championship is great as well. It's lovely standing in for people when Jack and Andy have been away, but it's nice getting the narrative of the whole championship, which is superb to be able to do. If you've not been to the Nurburgring, heartily recommend it. It's a wonderful, wonderful trip. It's a great track. So the GP track's great. The Nordschleife is brilliant as well. It's been quite a while since it's been. I'm not sure if the museum is still there. That very impressive looking building you've got over on the right-hand side, which I think doubles up as a hotel, a bit like Silverstone, but Nürburgring had it a long time before Silverstone thought of putting a hotel on their track. But well worth a visit. Some great cuisine in the area, beautiful scenery. Get a day away from the track, go on to the Nürburgring Castle, which is fantastic views to be had from there. Definitely something on my bucket list to go back and do again. So Scott Bugner on pole position for the first time, and alongside him, Craig Curtis, Eric Axelson. They're the three drivers we heard from. Andy Carroll lines up on the outside of row 2, then Chris Blakey and Andy Dorman. It is a very, very tight run down into turn 1, the Castrol S-curve. And we'll see whether Scott can indeed get the car underway. And it looks like he's got it off the line fairly well. Is he going to get across? He won't want to go too far across because he wants to take the wide line into turn 1 to maintain the lead. So it is going to be a bun fight. And in fact, coming up the inside is Craig Curtis, who's having a look. Eric Axelson to the outside run. This is the view from the outside of the Castrol curve, and it looks like a really good start by Scott Bugner. The nerves did not get the better of him, and the battle now is on for P2. Eric Axelson in green, looking up the inside, the gold-fronted car of Andy Carroll, trying to come through into third, but super start by Scott Bugner there, Reeve.
Yes, absolutely. A fantastic start as well for Eric Axelson. Hangs around the outside of turn 1. That gives him the inside for turn 2, and it brings him along side by side as we head over the exit of turn 4. And look at him, he's right in the mix now, putting that pressure onto Scott Bugner, forgetting about Craig Curtis already as we head all the way down to the lowest point on the circuit, one of the heavier braking zones coming up in just a moment. Turn 7, bit of a pinch point as we see change throughout the field. Eric thinking about a move. No, he's going to back out of it instead, but still could have the inside line here on the exit.
Yeah, the one thing we know about Eric Axelson, as I'll repeat from the reverse grid races we've seen, he does not go banzai. He doesn't go about making up, 3.5 places in the first laps, as you'd see in, say, a real-life circuit Legends Cars race when you've got drivers at the back. And he picks them off methodically, one by one, when he's able to do it, because he knows that the finish is probably much, much more important than the place gained. And that mentality, you can't get that over to drivers enough, particularly young drivers. And he's got a very mature head as Eric Axelson. And this is the view from the P2 place car, looking at Scott Bugner. But one wonders whether Scott, he's got the confidence in the car, got confidence in himself. He was saying that the difficult thing for him was going to be getting the car off the line, but he did that superbly under pressure. But look at Eric Axelson. He's able there to come out of the Coca-Cola curve on a good racing line. He was able to take a wider sweep in because he's not really under any pressure immediately behind. So he could take the good attacking racing line, gain a little bit more speed out of the corner, down the straight to tick off the first lap and try and take the battle to Bugner. Here is the view at turn 1. Again, you can see Axelson taking that nice sweep in. And this is wonderful for us, of course, because we're not seeing Scott defending too much at the moment. Maybe a little bit of defensiveness as he went into turn 1, but not overly aggressive at the moment. And again, Eric taking wide lines, good sweeping lines to try and close up. Once he's closed up, then possibly he'll have a go at getting into the lead. But as I've said, Eric will very much pick his moment to have a go into the lead and be happy with a potential podium at the moment for P2. But those two clear of Andy Carroll and Craig Curtis, third and fourth.
Yes, absolutely. It just looks like they're almost fighting their own race, really, not too interested at this moment in time with what is going on around them. These two, obviously very experienced racers at this point. As you say, they know the fight is later on, and potentially it's going to come now, actually, because Scott Bugner catches the outside of the circuit. That kicks the back end of the car out. The balance is upset. He is able to get back on track, but not without Eric Axelson being side by side. Not sure if that was a bit of lag there, maybe a bit of contact. Either way, they are still able to carry on. Eric Axelson has the upper hand in terms of pace, but it's Scott Bugner with the inside line here. I was going to see Scott defending the inside. Eric is going to have to wait to pounce as we run up towards turn 13. Now, turn 13 is a fantastic bit of track to watch as a driver's trying to absolutely nail those curbs. If you get them just right, there's time to be found, but you get them wrong and you are certainly punished. Let's see as Eric is getting closer and closer, only 1/10 separating these two cars.
The question is whether that pressure will build on Scott or whether he'll just think, yeah, okay, I've had a little moment and I've dealt with it, I survived it. Eric wasn't perhaps close enough to make the move to go through. It's bringing Andy Carroll into things a little bit closer as well. But it's how Scott deals with this pressure now, I think, to my mind. Is he going to carry on soaking it up? He's dealt with it well so far. Was it a mistake under pressure, or was it just a little bit of brain lag from him? Again, Eric taking the wide line down into the Castrol turn 1, now into the stadium complex. Let's see whether he will close in again. Scott Bugner still there up front. Andy Carroll is P3. Craig Curtis from Chris Blakey. Josh Martin is up one place from his starting position of 8th into two now. He's up into 6th place, ahead of Andy Dorman with Thomas Potter in 8th, Lee Pearcey 9th, and Johnny Ogden in 10th. So Johnny's lost a position from his starting slot of P10 as we rejoin the battle for the lead. Eric Axel, it's roles reversed for these two, isn't it? Because Eric has been the driver in the first 3 events of the season who won from pole position. A couple of times driven away from everybody, but now he finds himself with a different scenario, that of chaser. And I know from my limited racing experience, much prefer being a follower than a leader. I hate the pressure of being in front and keep worrying about where the driver is. Are they going to pop it up the inside? Obviously, these guys do it for real, so they'll handle that pressure a lot better than I would. But yeah, I'd be more comfortable as a chaser. I'm wondering whether Eric Axelsen is reveling in that.
Yeah, very possibly. He's had plenty of practice, of course, in the reverse grid races as well. Each round when he's had to work his way back up through the field, and has done very well in all of those. So perhaps a little bit of that experience coming into it as well. We're also seeing, as we've alluded to a couple of times already, the difference in lines that Eric is taking. He seems to be going slightly deeper on entry into the corner, taking a slightly wider line. That might be to preserve the tyres. That might just be the quicker kind of way to take the corner for his setup. Obviously, we know he runs quite a bit of ballast. He doesn't want to be scrubbing those front tyres all that much, whereas perhaps we're seeing the likes that Scott can actually push the car a little bit more earlier on. He feels confident in the car and its quality setup. It's just whether or not Scott's car is going to have the performance later on into the race. That is a bit of a question mark, don't forget, for Scott Bugner. Yeah,
that's a really good point, isn't it? He could very really wipe all the performance out of the car in the early stages. And Eric Axelsen is nothing if not consistent over his racing, so you tend not to see him drop away, although at the moment he's having a little bit of a breather. And Andy Carroll, the reverse livery to the race leader, running well. As we drop back and pick up on Thomas Potter. Thomas chasing double campaign race winner Andy Dorman in the white car with the blue stripes. So Thomas P8 at the moment, so drop from one position of his starting place. Behind him is Lee Pearcey. Lee having made up one position from his start. Johnny Ogden down in 10th. Then it's Catherine Potter ahead of Olivia Krzyżanowska. The two girls together again, they really are very evenly matched in the racing. They were last time out, and proving that again. The two newcomers having a good race of it.
Yes, absolutely. We saw it last time out at Donington in the reverse grid. There was a fantastic bit of racing between those two, controlling the field nicely. Unfortunately, it wasn't to last, but that was a great bit of racing between those two. We're still seeing, as you say, those two following along with each other.
Absolutely right. So Dorman coming under pressure from Thomas Potter. Thomas very capable of getting on a podium, has been a race winner with the club as well. As I said, any of the top 10 you could pick, particularly when we get into reverse grid racing territory. Thomas having a look here, getting closer. He's building his experience, doing lots of course outside, and has a little weave there. Has a look.
Ooh.
Goodness me, how close did he get there? Andy Dorman in the Eaton Garage car, soaking up the pressure from the flying teapot.
I can't remember the exact acronym, but that was very nearly a certain type of contact that is not well regarded in the VRRC. As they go side by side, making some door-to-door contact, that is well regarded, and it's Thomas Potter up the inside there. Who's going to be latest on the brakes? It looks like Thomas wins out this time round, squeezes his way in, takes the inside, and it's Thomas Potter up into P7. Andy Dorman, though, is certainly going to be fighting back for it, I suspect. Let's have a look at the pace at the moment between those two. They are pretty neck and neck, it must be said. Both 204.8 on the last lap. Best lap for Thomas Potter, 204.5. Andy Dorman, 204.8. So Thomas, we're starting to see potentially on a bit of a charge.
Yeah, Thomas is going to try and hunt down the 6th position driver now. That's Josh Martin. Josh, again, very consistent championship-wise, and another 6th place here will be handy. It will put him mid-grid for the top 12 switch if things stay as they are. It's still Bugner and Axelsen 1 and 2. The gap 0.6 of a second, more or less, depending on where they are on circuit. And then a little bit more of a gap developing back to Andy Carroll in P3. and Craig Curtis in 4th position. Craig will be a little bit disappointed to be off the race podium. Olivia Krzyzewska here in the yellow fronted car chasing Catherine Potter. So these two very close indeed, and that very sort of short circuit looking livery on the car. That's the background for Olivia, raced up at I'm guessing Lochgelly, which I think some of my colleagues are going to be on their visit to Scotland at the weekend, going to be going to Lochgelly to watch the racing Saturday night. Unfortunately I can't go because the support races for the touring cars on Saturday finish after the Lochgelly meeting starts, so I'd miss half the racing, which is a little bit of a shame. But it's a good night out up there, and I think we've got Superstocks, classic hot rods and all sorts of things on up there as the race leaders round the final turn again. It is Scott Bugner still out front, 6/10 still the gap from Eric Axel, so that initial challenge seems to have gone off the boil. Maybe Eric's thinking about fending off Andy Carroll at the moment before maybe building up for a final late race build. I won't say lunge because Eric doesn't do lunges, but a surge is probably the right word, a surge.
Yeah, I'd argue that's what he could be building up to at the moment. They are very close in terms of pace at the moment. Eric's got the slightly better fastest lap overall, but Eric's still trading purple sectors with Scott. Scott, purple sector through Sector 1 last time out, whereas Eric was purple sector through Sector 2. They are still keeping each other entertained, shall we say. They are still very much fighting each other, if not out and out battling, as we go on board at the moment with Johnny Ogden, of course, race winner last time out, currently running in P10, trying to fight with some other very fast drivers around him. Lee Piercy ahead of Catherine Potter as well. Bit of a gap to Catherine Potter. Looks to be, though, she is currently winning out in that battle against Olivia that we looked at a few moments ago. I think that battle could be going on for the rest of this race, to be honest.
I think so. We're looking at Johnny Ogden, who's been teasing us on social media about his upcoming announcement. I don't know whether he's made it yet, but I haven't seen too much on the other posts on social media today. Most of the my ones. My son passed his driving test today, so big celebrations in the Neal household, I'm pleased to say, and that's about the only thing that I've seen in the comments on that. But yeah, interesting to see what Johnny's announcement is as we ride on board with Eric Axelson. Timing tower going a little bit mad, but our eyes not deceiving us here as Eric's still trying to close in. And remember, second place points here for Eric will be a fine result indeed, because he hasn't finished outside the top 5. His worst result, race 2 at Barcelona, and I say worst result, he got 5th from 15th on the grid. So saying worst is 5th place is not a very kind way of putting it, to be perfectly honest. But in the reverse grid race, he's 4th, 5th and 3rd for Eric Axelson, and again takes that wide run into the Castrol turn through into the Mercedes arena down towards turn 3 and hounding Scott Bugner, who I think is looking, I think I'm correct in saying he's looking for his first virtual reality racing club win.
Yeah, as you say there, it does feel weird to say it will be a disappointing result. I mean, it felt weird saying it in after qualifying before in the interviews, but it was one of Eric Axelson's lower qualifying results. So that did feel strange. But what I'm getting here is I'm getting the impression from this fantastic camera angle being on board with Eric. I'm getting the impression that Scott is just pushing his car just a little bit more. We knew he had strong pace in quali, but we're seeing it when he runs through the curbs, turn 13, turn 14, for example. Cars up in the air, is absolutely clattering those curbs, and he is finding a bit of pace as a result. We saw that Scott was very strong in Sector 3, but you start to wonder just how on the knife edge he is, whereas Eric almost is looking a little bit more calm and collected and has 10 minutes of this race to go yet and might be waiting for his moment to pounce.
He could be. I think his best chance was that little mistake, wasn't it, that Scott made in the very early stages of this race. We've got just over 10 minutes remaining, and it ain't over yet. But as we said, Scott's, whether he gets this win or not, he's definitely got the potential to do it. With prior to this particular championship, I think had a brace of second positions in the VRRC BMW Cup. Scott, of course, has already had a second here in the reverse grid race at Pascani, and this will be his first fastest off the front podium in this campaign as well, if he can take it. So either way, we're looking at some sort of an improvement, and looking to improve there was Andy Dorman.
Wow.
As you said, you predicted that Andy Dorman was going to come back at the teapot, and he's doing that with aplomb.
He very much is. That looked very energetic, shall we say, riding over those curbs then. I think the back end was squirming around and getting oh so close to that tyre wall then. And these two drivers are going to be getting close now as we run down towards the first corner. Thomas Potter potentially later on the brakes there. No, maybe not. Earlier release perhaps for Andy Dorman, but they are oh so close. He takes the inside line, does Andy, but it's going to be Thomas with the inside for turn 2. A fantastic little section of track at the start of the Nurburgring GP circuit. And down the inside there, is this going to be Andy Dorman going for it? I think it nearly was. It didn't work out, but that's fantastic stuff. He gets a good run though on the exit of turn 4, turn 5 coming up. And it's a nose in front for Andy Dorman, but I don't think this battle's over yet.
It isn't. Do you know what? I take my hat off there to Thomas Potter as well, because the lesser driver might have run him off the road, but Thomas knows now he's under pressure from Lee Pearcey as well. By being fair, he's ended up in a 3-way scrap instead of a 2-way scrap. But that was great racing from Andy Dorman and Thomas Potter. Good clean stuff, giving each other room, exactly what we want to see. And those particular moves certainly not going to generate any contretemps on Monday night when the judicials get sorted out. I'm not saying that there won't be further on down the road for anybody. I'm sure there will be. But super stuff from Dorman and Potter. The disappointing thing for them is where they're squabbling with each other, they're bringing Lee Pearcey into it. Lee, of course, is metaphorically rubbing his hands together to get involved in this scrap for 7th place. But Josh Martin will be as well. He's further down the road in 6th, down behind Chris Blakey. Craig Curtis 4th, Andy Carroll still 3rd, Axelson and Bugner still 2 and 1 respectively.
Yes, it's always a quandary when it comes to racing. You know, do you work together? Do you try and close up the gap to the cars further ahead, or do you just enjoy some battling now? And I think we know the answer that these guys have gone for. They are capable of running in the high 2-0. Oh, that looks like a big off for Lee Pearcey, and it is. The curb going wrong there. Lee Pearcey firing off into the sunset. Let's hope he can get his car back underway and it isn't too damaged, although I think his front wing is going to be pretty much annihilated from that incident and his race hopes as well. But these drivers are on board with at the moment. Oh, it's Lee Pearcey we're on board with now. He has got back underway. His rather wounded Cupra Leon, it must be said there. That's not going to buff out, I don't think. Running in 10th at the moment, and I think, is he getting out of the way for the cars behind? No, he's not, but he is able to carry on, but that is a wounded car.
It is, and I just love the fact that in this virtual reality racing, it even simulates the damage and the effects of the damage on the cars as well. But thankfully, without anyone getting hurt. Talking about simulated racing and excellence here, we've got Axelson and Bugner out front, still racing hard. The timing tab showing Thomas Potter. That's erroneous at the moment, sorts itself out. Bugner's still in control of this one, but I tell you what, this is going the way that Reeve said earlier on. I've got a feeling here that Axelson is getting steadily closer, lap by lap here, with 7 minutes on the clock, building maybe for an orchestrated crescendo perhaps here at the Nurburgring. He's closing in, and there's that old cliche about getting close is one thing, overtaking is quite another, and we know that Eric will be quite happy to settle for a podium position here points-wise. It will do him no harm at all. Scott Bugner, though, still out front and doing a grand job here. Super stuff from him with that pole position, and has led for very nearly 20 minutes of this race thus far.
Speaking of lead, this is when Eric Axelson reveals to us that this is all just a ploy to reduce his ballast in his car. He could have, given what he says about his hot laps that we get provided very generously on stream by him, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, dear, Eric! Oh, no, that is Chris Blakey. Sorry, that is a big incident. Once again, the curves at turn 13, 14 are providing us plenty of action. What we actually saw there, which is quite an interesting phenomenon, was the front and rear subframe completely detached from the vehicle and then reattach. So well done to the mechanics for fixing that one. They are back underway, but that is a big impact. That car, perhaps not as nice to drive as it once was.
No, for sure. We've seen a couple of big incidents, and well done to Rich Hayden on picking up on those. And, you know, we haven't missed a thing so far. Eric Axelson was very, very close that time coming down into turn 1. We're coming through turn 4 now up towards the RTL straight, which goes towards Valvoline, the left-hander, turn 5. And the battle for the lead is very much on. Andy Carroll, spectator for this at the moment. Box C, though, isn't it, for him in 3rd position. Craig Curtis still back in 4th, but Axelson starting to build up a little bit of momentum as we drop back to Andy Dorman now in 6th place. Thomas Potter is 7th, from Johnny Ogden 8th. Then it's Chris Blakey. Lee Piercy in 10th, could get himself on for a decent starting position in the reverse grid race too. Then it's Catherine Potter and Olivia Krasnowska. Those two are going to be at the moment on the front row for the reverse grid race. What's the French for déjà vu?
No, because you'll bring me back to our discussion about a low that we had before. Either way, it'll be great to see those two battling out in front for the reverse grid race once again. I think they picked up a few things. They learnt a few things. We saw it in Barcelona, and they seem to improve heading into Donington, and hopefully we'll see the same again here at the Nurburgring. Enjoy some even better racing. We're still on board at the moment with Thomas Potter. Andy Dorman still ahead, but it's still very close. These two have done a very remarkable job, it must be said, of keeping with each other. Speaking of that, Eric Axelson just behind Scott Bugner, now heading through the zone of the track that has seen a few cars go slightly amiss, shall we say, but these two have survived it for 20 minutes so far, just a few more to go.
I'm always quite happy to watch a race where drivers match each other lap for lap, corner for corner. Used to get it in Clio Cup quite a lot. People would say to me, oh, goodness me, the Clio's boring. What? No way. Because the performance of the drivers, lapping at top speeds and literally matching each other, as I say, turn for turn, lap for lap, over half an hour or so, is an absolute joy to watch. If there are no overtakes, who cares? Because you've seen drivers on equal terms, just waiting for a mistake, waiting for an opportunity that doesn't come. And if the opportunity doesn't come, it's down to perfection by the driver out front. And, you know, that's what you want to see. And this hasn't quite been like that. We saw a little error from Scott earlier on. Eric closed up, dropped back, closed in again, and Scott's just rebuilt the gap again. I wonder if Andy Carroll's getting a little bit closer to Eric. No, certainly not close enough to make an impact for P2 at the moment, but this has been a very entertaining race again in this championship, and Bugner now with 3 minutes just over on the clock remaining, surely is going to hold on to this.
You have to say, it must. If you're Scott Bugner, this must be very confidence-inspiring indeed. We've seen so far in this season, Eric Axelson has looked pretty much unstoppable. He has been a bit of a force, really, but Scott Bugner heading into this weekend, we knew he had some good pace in him. He knew he had some good pace in him, but he didn't think it was going to be consistent. We also thought maybe it was just something that showed up in quali and he didn't have too much practice for the race. And perhaps, you know, Eric Axelson has really shone in the race, even more so arguably than qualifying. And that just hasn't worked out for Eric's way, really. Scott Bugner has shown that he is certainly capable of fighting against Eric and fighting well. These two are going to be fighting in the reverse grid race coming up in a moment. That is going to be very enjoyable to watch indeed. A slightly different set of circumstances there. But yeah, it's been a great day out so far for Scott Bugner. We're back aboard with Thomas Potter, another driver for which this has been a great day out. So we're going to head through the forbidden curves once again. We do make it through. Oh, a little bit of grass, but other than that, we do make it through.
He does. Remember, Thomas Potter, I think, still too young to enter junior scholarships. He was when I first started commentating on all this. So it's very difficult, or it's very easy, I should say, to forget that this youngster, I mean, I guess he might be entering some scholarships this year if he's old enough, but maybe the family can correct us on the chat if you can keep an eye on that for us, Reeve. I'd love to see him at the VRRC's Fiesta scholarship in October half term, and maybe if he is too young to do it, come along and do it anyway, because we had a young youngster last year doing it. You can't win, but it's a terrific experience. Apart from being interviewed by me, that's the worst bit.
I thought you were about to say that was the best bit then. No, I was going to say, it was cracking as you are in interviews. That Fiesta Cup is brilliant stuff. I like to mention the Clio Cup as well. I do love a bit of Clio Cup. It's nice to see them working, because I have a friend with a Clio 182 and it's on its 5th engine.
Well, Nicky Taylor's doing that now, isn't he? The new Clio Cup. Nicky Taylor, one of our VRRC alumni.
And we do actually have Thomas Potter's family watching along, saying he's 12 and would love to come along to the Fiestas. So that is good to hear.
Yeah, it'd be great to see him, and I guess he could enter it for real next year. I don't know. I'd have to check on the ages, but it'd be lovely to see Thomas there and having a go. And I'm sure he wouldn't be turned away from it. He could probably do the Ginetta one as well, but I'm not involved in the Ginetta one this year, so boo to them. Come to the BRSCC. you have to be 14 to race this. I think the scholarship you have to be 13, and basically you have to be 14 at the start of next year to be able to enter the scholarship to win it. But I think you can do it as an experience. We had Stuart Lyons' young son in the scholarship last year, and he was too young to win. Did very well. Great experience for him as well. So if he comes this year, he'll do well. But clock is running down, so we can come back to that and talk about that another time, because we've got onto the last lap, just about to squeeze in this final lap, and Scott should have slowed down so that he could have taken the checkered flag there, but he's got another lap to do as Scott Bugner from Eric Axelsen. What's the gap? It's 1.3, so it's gone out a little bit. Eric may be settled in that P2. It'd be fascinating to hear from him. With Andy Carroll in third. Andy, of course, started in fourth position. All those looking fairly settled at the moment. Thomas Potter still in seventh. Andy Dorman ahead of him. Josh Martin in fifth. Just having a look to see who's going to be on pole. It's actually a little change round, because we've now got Alex Walker on provisional pole for race 2. Alex in 12th. Olivia 11th from Catherine Potter. And Chris Blakey 9th. That'll be your top 2 rows in the reverse grid race. But Scott Bugner, super stuff from him, Reeve.
Yes, absolutely. As we've discussed so far in this race, it's been remarkable to watch him control this race, control it well. It was looking potentially under threat. We knew there was a bit of trepidation about the race start as well, but Scott has absolutely risen to the challenge, has taken control of this race, and is going to be rewarded. And it will be a well-deserved reward at that.
It will. Last few corners will beckon, and a first virtual reality racing club win perhaps beckoning here. Eric Axelsen, a none too shabby P2, worst result in race 1 of the season. I'm sure you'll forgive me for saying that, and maybe rubbing a little bit of salt in the wound, but superlative racing from him, and qualifying. Remember, P3, if that's your worst, then hey, that's not too bad at all. Final turn though, and onto the main straight. The virtual checkered flag will beckon for our first time race winner here on the Nurburgring GP circuit. Scott Bugner takes the checker, takes the win from Eric Axelsen. Andy Carroll in P3. Craig Curtis next up from Josh Martin in 5th. Across the line goes Craig. Let's wait for Josh in the white and green machine. He goes across the line next up from Andy Dorman. Thomas Potter in 7th. Then Johnny Ogden. Chris Blakey will finish in 9th position. Wait for Chris to go across the line. He does. Catherine Potter is going to be in 10th and winning the unofficial Coupe des Dames, with Olivia Krzyzewska next up. There is Catherine going across the line. Olivia in 11th. Alex Walker will be 12th and provisional pole. They're followed by Lee Piercy, John Jones, Sam Walton, Mark Stokes and Kenny Press. The latter two had issues earlier on in the race, and hopefully they'll be back out to have a go in race 2. But before we get there, we've got interviews. And before we get to our interviews, we've got to take a short break. So we'll be back with you in just a minute. Reeve's going to, I think, kick off the interview. Oh, no, it's me, isn't it? I'm doing 3 in 1 this time. Beg your pardon. Mind the gap, as they say in radio. So, well done to our top 3, which we'll do in reverse order, which means that our first is with Andy Stato Carroll. Andy, well done. One place made up from qualifying. So let's start with the qualifying chat. Were you happy with that?
No, I was quite disappointed with qualifying, to be honest. Couple of laps where would have got me on the below the 2 minutes threes, which I sort of messed up at the last chicane. So I was a bit disappointed to be fourth, but no matter. I don't think I would have had the pace to keep Eric behind me anyway. So third was probably third was probably where I was comfortable being. Happy with that. So yeah, tried to keep up with them for as long as possible, but their pace was kind of somewhat unrelenting. And just saw the lap times coming. I think saw Scott did like a 3.0 at one point. Yeah, so just sort of had to try and keep it clean and tidy. Thought they might sort of start to battle a bit, but then I think Scott pulled away slightly towards the last few laps. And so as I say, anytime you finish with just Scott and Eric in front of you, I don't think you can complain about your result.
No, for sure, it's the right direction as well, isn't it? First podium of the campaign, I think we've gone 10th to 5th, Pascani, 4, 11, 11, 5, and now 3. And we're certainly used to seeing you up at the sharp end. You won a couple of races in minis when I was commentating on that for the club, and you had a win in touring cars as well. So I guess difficult to maintain front running pace all the time, but no, a decent result I thought, and great to see you on the podium. Thoughts on race 2? Obviously quite a way back to start, but not as far as previous rounds.
Not as bad as it could have been. So yeah, obviously not a full reverse, thankfully, and I think it's been it was top 15 last week. It's top 12 now. So yeah, I think hopefully that I don't think it'll make it any easier because you've still got those likes of Josh and Andy and Chris and Craig, obviously, to get past, and that won't be easy, but it should be good. Gotta keep my eye out in my mirrors for see where Eric and Scott are, and then try and put some pressure on the guys in front, and see where we can make it back to.
Nice one. Well, great to chat to you on the podium. Well done. Always good to see you, and good luck for race 2.
Thanks, Richard.
Let's hand over to Reeve, who's going to have a word with our P2 man.
I am indeed, and it is Eric Axelson. Started P3, finished P2, so overall a pretty positive result out there for you, Eric.
Yeah, I think I need to be happy with that, considering Scott's pace. So yeah, happy with P2.
And of course, it was a good race start for you. Do you think that kind of helped your position, or do you feel like you were finished where you expected to? Really, do you feel like you had the confidence going into this race that you're going to be able to make up some positions?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great start. We all did, to be honest. And then I was able to get ahead of Craig on the first lap, and then I thought, let's try to stick with Scott, and maybe we can pull away and wait for him to make a mistake. But the problem was he didn't really do any mistakes, and I wasn't able to keep up almost. So that was all I had basically. He was so fast tonight.
Did you enjoy battling with him though? Was it good out there? Track and car feel good?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't really have any battles because I wasn't really able to connect. I might try another setup now for race 2. See if it makes any difference.
Well, I was going to ask, are you heading into race 2 with a different mindset potentially? Of course, Scott will be alongside you, but you've got to fight through the field. So, are you looking forward to that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the reverse grids is always fun. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we look forward to seeing you out there, Eric. Congrats once again on P2, another podium under your name there. And now we're going to have a chat with our race victor from race 1.
Yeah, I'm actually awake as well, so unlike when we came back from the outbreak, which I apologise for the gap, but yeah, I'm awake now. I actually had a question for Eric, but I'm just going to wait for another time. I'm going to make a note and ask him the next time there's a good pun that goes with the question, although it might be. If we go to a different circuit, it won't be relevant. Hey ho, enough of that. Let's welcome to the top step of the virtual podium, Scott Bugler. Congratulations, Scott.
Thank you. That was hard. It was very close because Eric was in my mirrors all the time.
Am I right in saying that's your first win with the club?
With these cars, yes. Not with VRRC, no.
Right, well, it absolutely mega. Certainly the first one that I've commentated on, I think, that you've won. So there was a little moment there. I mean, Eric was saying you didn't make any mistakes, and I'm not sure if it was a mistake or a moment, but there was just in the early stages of the race a worrying moment where he tried to pop up the inside. Can you remember what happened there?
I think I outbraked myself, and as I was going straight on, I kind of had to just pull the handbrake a little bit to get the car to turn, and then ended up clipping the grass and went sideways, if that's the moment you're on about. And then Eric was on my tail then, and it was kind of, I was looking at my son because he was looking at me going, "Oh no, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing?" So I had to keep my head down and try and work hard. But you know, having Eric behind you is not easy at all. He's like the Incredible Hulk. I look in my mirror and there's this big green thing just looking down on me. So but no, it's really good, and fair play to Andy as well for a podium. So the team Carbug have done well tonight so far.
Yeah, cracking result. And I know you were worried at the start about getting it off the line, but very clearly no problems. No,
this time actually was probably the best start I've had, which was what I needed to do. But I'm not looking forward to this one because for some reason I've turned my smoke effects off because the tyre smoke's really bad and it's made no difference. So I'm not going to be able to see an awful lot in this one. So it's going to be just follow the brake lights and see what happens, I think.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, with the reverse, and it gives us another perspective, to watch you and Eric, and of course Andy coming through from 12th on the grid. And as we said during the race, that anybody can win it in that group. I mean, I would not be surprised if any one of the top 12 took the win. But what's your strategy on a reverse grid? Are you going to obviously want to get ahead of Eric, but are you of the mindset, make a few places up on the first lap if you can? Or is it sit back and pick them off one by one?
I think it's just get through the chaos first, and then just see where the pace lies. And if me and Eric and Andy can work together to get through, then great. But like I said, I'm going to be following brake lights for most of the race, and when I know I can't see any, that probably means I'm in first, so then I can relax. I hardly doubt that's going to happen in this one, but we'll give it a good shot. And like I said, we'll just try and work together and not lose too much time at the start. And then once the race settles in, then elbows out and go for it, I think.
Nice one, Scott. Real pleasure to interview you as race one winner. Pole position, race one winner. Very well done. I think we're overrunning on the interviews, and you probably need a bit of time to get set up for race two. So good luck with that. Thanks again, and well done.
Thank you very much.
Scott Bugner, race. And we're looking forward to race two, the reverse grid race. A reminder, Alex Walker is on pole position for this one, having finished 12th in race one. Olivia Krasnowska will be alongside, then Catherine Potter and Chris Blakey, Johnny Ogden, Teapot, Thomas Potter on row 3. And there are the cars all ready, lined up and ready to go with virtually no rest. The leaders, of course, having to contend with Reeve and myself pinging questions at them, get even less time to prepare for the reverse grid race in this very, very quick turnaround. And so they're probably all well used to it. They've got a lot of work to do. Reeve, I'll hand over to you for the start of this race.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, those leaders, probably we treat it as a bit of balance in the universe. They're very strong, very capable in the series, so we give them less prep time by boring them and annoying them. I can actually offer before this race start. We've got just over 60 seconds until lights out. A bit of a brief poll interview for race 2. Alex Walker, good friend of mine. I've received some communication from the driver himself. And it pretty much says, expletive, I'm going to die, please help, tell them I get a head start. So we've got confidence on the front row of the grid as we head down into turn 1 here at the Nurburgring GP circuit. We were looking out for perhaps a little bit of chaos heading into turn 1. We managed to avoid that as we did head into turn 1, but let's see what happens in this reverse grid race. It could be particularly spicy. There are, though, behind Alex Walker, Olivia Krasnowska, and then we have, sorry, no, it's not, it's Catherine Potter. Then he read out the wrong name. Catherine Potter as well. We saw those two battling at Donington. Let's hope we have more of that, because that was some fantastic action Then we have Chris Blakey, Johnny Ogden, and Thomas Potter just behind that group of cars. Just over 10 seconds now until lights out as the drivers get ready to prepare that launch. That a little bit tricky on occasion to try and get 335 horsepower down through the front wheels of these front-wheel drive cars, but let's see how it goes for them as we have 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away for 25 minutes of touring car action here at the Nurburgring GP circuit, side by side for the 2 cars on the front row of the grid, as it looks to be a decent getaway for pretty much everyone there. Maybe a couple of stragglers, but other than that, all good. Running down now into that first corner, and it is Olivia on the defensive. There is Chris Blakey. Great move up into P1 of this race. There's been contact. There's been a massive accident heading into the first corner. That is easily half of the grid involved in that one, Richard.
Yeah, that was a big shame. All piling into it's such a tight turn 1. Can you imagine what it's like when the big trucks are thundering around there? I've commentated on the European trucks back in the past and how they managed to get around turn 1, I don't know. They have much the same sort of thing at Pembrey, don't they? Trucks going down into Hatchett's hairpin down there. Meanwhile, it's a good start for the rest of them who've got going superbly. It was Olivia who had that early lead. Is that Olivia at the back of this group? I think it is. So Olivia has managed to survive that. Was probably, she'll chastise me for saying one of the lucky ones, but she got turned around, but I don't think picked up huge amounts of damage. I do stand to be corrected on that one, but she's still in the mix and perhaps in with a shout of a decent place. Alex Walker maybe struggled to get it off the line. You heard his comment there before the start of the race from Reeve, and that's what this reverse grid racing for me is all about, giving people a chance to build their confidence as well as enthusiasm, get over any nerves. It doesn't matter if you mess the start up in your first reverse grid one. That's what it's all about. More shenanigans going on here. Goodness me, all close stuff going on at the moment, all very nearly running over the camera. Now, did I speak too soon about Olivia, who I think did get turned around there? Andy Carroll's got damage as well. He is down the order with Olivia.
He is absolutely tumbling down the order. One of the longest waits you'll ever see or ever experience if you're a racing driver is that wait to rejoin the track safely. It might only be 6 or 7 seconds, but it feels like an absolute eternity, and he's had to experience that wait, has Andy Carroll. He's got back underway now by the looks of things as we go back on board with Alex Walker, who's 4 seconds down on Chris Blake, who's been absolutely able to check out. He made it through turn 1 cleanly with that very nice move indeed, while everyone else seemed to get caught up in a little bit of those incidents. As you said, Richard, Olivia did get caught up, did get spun around, but I think most importantly didn't get completely taken off track. I think a few of the drivers ended up so far off track they had a very long drive back. As we're on board at the moment with Eric Axelson, he's had a very good run up into P6. He's putting the pressure on Johnny Ogden up in front. Race winner from the previous round, of course, is Johnny Ogden, so he's going to give a decent amount of challenge to Eric Axelson as we head into the mid part of the track now.
Yeah, a couple of things to pick up on here. Livia Krasnovska, guess where she rejoined? Just behind Catherine Potter. So you just can't separate those two. Whatever happens on track, they seem to wind up together on circuit, which is unusual. Meanwhile, Scott Bugner is up into 4th place. So Scott having a very good run. A couple of cars clear of Eric Axelson. So Scott having a decent day at the moment. Is he going to be able to double up on podium appearances? Blakey, Walker, Piercy and Bugner are the top 4 at the moment, with Johnny Ogden in 4th. Axelson busy having a look to try and close down on the late night coffee car of Johnny Ogden, and Eric doing what he does so very, very well indeed, just, you know, going place by place, lap by lap. I said about, you know, wanting to pick places off, but you have to say that Chris Blakey, by going from 4th into 1st, might sound a bit rash on turn 1. I'm sure he didn't cause any problems on turn 1 as Piercy goes wide, so that could give the podium position here to Bugner, who goes up the inside. He's got more momentum and perhaps a little bit more confidence around the track as well with that win, so Bugner up into 3rd place.
Yes, already in the podium scoring positions. This is a great start to the 25 minutes worth of racing for our race 1 winner. We know, as you say, he's got the confidence at this track. He's clearly got the pace, and now he is hunting potentially another race victory here. You cannot exclude him from that possibility. You know, it's already a good drive to see down from P12 all the way up into P3, but I get the feeling he's fighting for more this time round as we see The big field of cars are heading into the first corner. It's going to have a bit of a move. That is actually Johnny Ogden on Eric Axelson. Potentially, Eric is going to have the outside, though, for turn 1. Inside for turn 2. Defends the position 4 now while we look at our front runners heading through the pack there. Alex Walker very much must feel a bit like a cork in the bottle at this point. It has got Scott Bugner behind, perhaps your most fearsome competitor that you could ask for here at the Nurburgring GP. And there you can see defensive driving so far seems to be the name of the game for Alex. He's doing well at keeping those front runners behind. The question is for how long.
Yeah, this is what it's about, isn't it? You know, getting to see somebody new up in P2. Could have been the race lead, but maybe won't be too happy with his start. Perhaps he'll keep the momentum going and we'll grab a podium interview out of Alex. But yeah, this is exactly what it's about now, and he's learning. Scott Bugner will know, from Scott's point of view, Scott will know that he's maybe a little bit quicker, would have the speed to be able to pass, but he won't necessarily have raced with Alex for this position before. So that's new territory. So he's got to try and weigh up the guy in front because he's a new racing partner technically, and just work out where the weak spots are, if any. This is where we might get the... Yeah, here we go.
Down the inside, nice textbook move there. Goes a little bit deep into the corner, perhaps Scott Bugden does, but makes it stick in the end. That's Alex down to P3, Scott up to P2. That was about as clean as you could ask for, really, wasn't it?
It was good stuff. Lee Pearcey now looking to try and get up onto the race podium. Chris Blakey here doing what we've seen a couple of the reverse grid race leaders do over the course of the season so far. Andy Dorman and Johnny Ogden both made great jobs of quick getaways. And Chris Blakey, who, remember from the mini campaign, had a win at Croft. I think I had to miss the Croft week, I'm pretty sure. I didn't commentate on his mini win. That was a couple of series ago in the minis, but he's out front at the moment with a good lead over Scott Bugner, with Lee Pearcey now into third.
Yes, it looked to be towards the end of the lap. It got a little bit scruffy for Alex Walker there. We saw him pounding over the curbs, turn 13, turn 14. He did a good job actually to keep it on the grey stuff there, as we've seen that not be the case for a few drivers in race 1. He was able to recover, but did lose some pace as a result of that. A little bit slower on that previous lap compared to his nearest rivals. Lost about just over half a second, actually, all in that last sector there. Now potentially under pressure from Eric Axelson, another formidable opponent, as we head further down the actually quite steep change in elevation here at this circuit.
It is. It's a great track, and lovely that the German racing authorities obviously kept Hockenheim, kept Nurburgring, rather than having
street circuit.
Completely, having the original one. I mean, the Nordschleife would be a lovely one. We're still trying to lobby Rich into running something on the Nordschleife, and if we do, Reeve, we're going to, you and I are going to have to commit to learning all of the corner names on the 14-mile track.
We'll have to do some of our own driving around there. Could be commentary from in the car.
Yeah, I can't drive. I'm useless.
That's okay. Contact between Eric and Alex Walker there. That was the front of Eric's car into the back of Alex's. Potentially just a difference, delta in speed that was perhaps unexpected heading into that left-handed corner there. Wasn't too major. I think it was a few miles an hour, but I don't think it was anything too malicious, shall we say. Eric knows how to race very fairly indeed, and luckily nothing bad came of it.
Well, he'll have to wait till Monday night though to see, won't he?
As we see down the inside there from Eric, that's not an entirely traditional overtaking spot, you must say, but good nonetheless.
Yeah, lovely move. So Eric Axelson up into P4. Lee Pearcey is the target. Now the black car just going out of shot to the right. Still side by side for the position behind. This is wonderful stuff from Alex Walker, really taking the challenge back. Hasn't got the line going into turn 1. And Eric Axelson makes it into 4th place. Chris Blakey still the leader. Scott Bugner 5.5 seconds down on Blakey. Need to try and remember that to see whether he can make any inroads into it with 3/5 of the race remaining. Blakey out front would be delighted to pick up a race win. Hasn't finished on the podium so far. Best result of 6th position. Race 2 last time out at Donington. Has had 2 other top 10s during the course of the season as well as Chris Blakey. But yeah, doing the right thing here, made the moves at the right time and got his head down and built a good lead, which is now 5 5.2, 5.3. Andy Dorman with damage, just trying to race with Olivia Grzynowska. And you can see Catherine Potter a little bit further down the road.
Not an ideal weekend for Andy Dorman, it must be said. The reverse grid was a perfect opportunity to try and fight for those higher positions, but it just hasn't came to be, unfortunately, owing to, I suspect, that turn one brawl, as I think we'll name it.
Yeah, sadly that does happen on reverse grid racing from time to time. Well, quite a lot, but it's part and parcel of it. Sometimes drivers come through, sometimes they don't. Lovely battle here, though. Dorman trying to get past Grzynowska. He's got the inside run here. Olivia's seen him. She's going to try and stick out around the outside. That's a good old oval race move, isn't it? And as an oval race, ex-oval race, she'll be well keen on that. A little bit of kissing and cuddling, metaphorically, as they go into the corner. And Andy Dorman still running on the outside line. Now, twists and turns here, switch inside to outside, corner by corner. And Andy can't quite get the move done. So, good, robust racing from the pair of them here.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to head to that tricky technical part of the circuit where it's gone wrong so many times, side by side. Too wide heading through the curbs. Good to see both making it out. Some very nice racing there indeed. Who's going to get the better run now as we head onto the start-finish straight? It looks to be that Andy's got a pretty decent run. No slipstream to be had here because we are side by side. Although at the top end, perhaps Olivia's car coming into its own really as we head into that first corner. Who's going to be later on the brakes now? Andy dives, has the inside, boxes off the outside as well, is able to take the inside for turn two. Nice move there to secure the position for Andy Dorman.
Yeah, lovely move. Set it up before going into the last corner. Got the switch back on the exit. And then the run down the straight. A little bit more efficient on the brakes. It looked like Olivia maybe had a wee bit more momentum down towards the end of the straight as we pick up on Eric Axelsen. Still working hard, trying to close down on Craig Curtis. So it's Blakey, Bugner, then Piercy, Curtis, Axelsen in fifth, Johnny Ogden in sixth place. And you can see just how close all of these cars are. Why we were saying that there are so many drivers here that are capable of taking not just podium positions, but those very well sought after wins. Piercy, though, heading this group, he's in third position. Would dearly love to finish on the podium, would Lee Piercy. Hasn't had one so far this year. Missed last week at Donington Park, but other than that, best result, sixth position, race one at Pascani. We know he's got the pace. Has he got the mettle to be able to hold on from the championship leader, Eric Axelsen? He gets his mirrors full of green and black. The Jolly Green Giant wasn't the Jolly Green Giant, it was the Incredible Hulk, wasn't it? That was the green metaphor we had from Scott Bugner in race number one. Is the Green Machine angry? I don't think Eric ever gets angry, but he's certainly keen to try and get that podium slot.
In contact there between Craig Curtis and Lee Piercy. That almost kind of compresses everyone into the same part of the track at once. Luckily, everyone else is able to make it through, but it's going to be a bit dicey here into turn one, I suspect, as we have Lee Piercy leading from Craig Curtis. Johnny Ogden is side by side there as well. Eric Axelsen is just behind these two cars that are squeezing each other as we head into that first corner. Are we going to go three wide heading into turn one? I thought for a second we were, but it seems to be everyone has sorted themselves out. No, Lee Piercy back end around. He's off the track there. Craig Curtis up into third position. More turn one chaos.
Yeah, I think that was Eric Axelsen out as well. It was Eric, so it happens to the best of them, doesn't it, from time to time? And Eric Axelsen right in the pack, no fault of his own. But it's Craig Curtis now up into that podium position with Blakey leading from Bugner. Those two well clear and out of the trouble. Craig Curtis in P3. And I've got to say, looking pretty clear at the moment is Craig Curtis. Is he going to get the podium that he was denied in race number one?
Well, perhaps it looked a little bit more settled before, then it just turned into chaos once again. So we'll see as we get closer towards the end of this race in race two. But what a shame for Eric Axelsen. We thought after race one wasn't his ideal race, although still a very strong result. Race two would have been the turnaround in fortunes that he could have capitalised on to try and take a victory or to take a decent scoring position. But his rival Scott Bugner has excelled, has absolutely progressed through the field here in race two, whereas Eric Axelsen has done the complete opposite here. So it is a real turnaround in fortunes for Eric, and I think that two drop rounds rule is going to be coming very useful for him at some point, shall we say.
It certainly will. Thomas Potter, meanwhile, has come up into fourth position, showing third on the timing screen at the moment. Sorts itself out. Craig Curtis the white, red and black car immediately at the head of this group, currently in P3. And Thomas Potter under pressure from Johnny Ogden, winner of race 2 last time out. Johnny takes a good tight line there, trying to close down on the Flying Teapot, who in turn is hungry here for a podium. Thomas Potter, are we going to see Thomas get a podium? It's certainly within touching distance at the moment, with 10 minutes on the clock. So he's got the distance to be able to do it. He's also got the time to be able to do it as well. So Craig Curtis, lots of stories here to be resolved. Craig Curtis possibly getting, remember, he qualified second quickest between Scott Bugner and Eric Axelson, and has worked his way through. And this is again exactly like real world racing. All the bits and pieces have to everything has to align for you to get a decent result. Eric Axelson, you know, if he's the kind of guy I think he is, he'll probably be relieved that he's had a disappointment here. It's out of the way. The law of averages say that you're going to get one every so often, and that's now gone from him. So he's still getting points. He's in 8th place, down behind Andy Carroll and Alex Walker. Alex Walker running well, still in P6 here. So this is a good strong drive from Alex off the front of the grid. There have been plenty of shenanigans for him to have to deal with and avoid, and he's done that well. He's soaked up pressure, still on for some decent points. Not seeing anything of our race leader at the moment because we've got this 3-way scrap potentially for 3rd place. It's Thomas Potter still trying to reel in Craig Curtis, but not making huge inroads at the moment. But you'll know he's got 8 minutes left to keep chipping away, maybe have a go in the closing stages.
Yes, absolutely. Thomas Potter, a strong recovery for him. Race 1, not an idyllic race 1, and then race 2 arguably started even worse in the mix. In the brawl at the start of the race, but as slowly and quietly just worked his way up through the field, is now looking very strong there. On board with Johnny Ogden, just behind him there is Alex Walker. As you say, nice consistent drive from Alex. Perhaps not what we usually see in the reverse grid races, but I've known Alex for a number of years now, and he's arguably not your top pick for qualifying, but he is one thing, and that is consistent. He's perfect in the likes of the 24-hour British University Karting Championship endurance events. That sort of event is where he thrives, really, and maybe we're just seeing that consistency shining through here.
Not your top pick for qualifying. That's sort of like shrouded rudeness, isn't it, really?
It is, but if it's any consolation to him, neither am I, and he did I was on the same team of him in our last 24-hour event, and he did a much better job than myself. There's a reason why I talk about it and I don't do it. Oh, that's we just had Rich and our here then, stream director Rich and general event guru and organizer. I think he's going to have some queries regarding track limits after that one.
I think you will. I'm only pulling your leg, by the way, about the comments about Alex, and it's great if you can have a bit of banter with competitors on track.
Oh, wow. I'm sure he's still as hungover as I was on Saturday. We were both, so it's fine. I could say far worse things about him. He doesn't mind.
It's great if you can do that in the racing. I must admit, I do. My favourite thing in the world has been a banter about a driver. It shows their personality as much as anything else, which is great. He's doing a super job. Still in P6. Andy Carroll chasing him down. Lee Pearson, meanwhile, who was on the podium a few laps ago, now fighting to get a little bit higher up the top 10. He's in P10 here. Olivia Krasnowska behind him, and Olivia ahead of Catherine Potter in this one at the moment. So Olivia will take a little bit of consolation from that. Where is Catherine? Let's see if she goes through shot. There she is. So those two not in battling mode at the minute, but the pair of them ahead, Lee Pearcey, Andy Dorman, probably closest to battling out of those two. Chris Blakey still out front. We were talking about dodgy sitcoms, weren't we, before the broadcast started today? And Blakey was a character in another 70s dodgy sitcom, wasn't he? If you remember, you won't remember or even seen that one, I don't think. Reeve. You've
trumped my old British sitcom challenge there, unfortunately.
We've lost you. There's another character in it called Butler, but Butler's not with us this weekend, is he? Today, so very sadly, Darren Butler. Hope you're well, Darren. And if you're watching it, I hope you're enjoying the race. Look forward to seeing you back on track real soon. I'll get out of the 70s groove now and go back to where we are. Thomas Potter still trying to close down on Craig Curtis. I think he's a tad closer here, maybe a tenth or so closer to Craig Curtis. But the clock now, from when we last looked at Thomas Potter, we're 5 minutes on. He's closed down a little bit. Remember, one mistake could potentially gift him a go at third place and a maiden podium in the Cupra Cup for this campaign. We'll see whether that does play out, but it's still Blakey out front from Scott Buckner. Curtis in third, Thomas Potter in fourth. Thankfully, the race has now settled down after that frenetic opening few corners and a few other moments besides that. So all good at the moment.
See Craig Curtis trading position with Thomas Potter. Oh, as it looks to be. Oh no, sorry, timing glitch there potentially. So I do apologise there. I've only been commentating on Assetto Corsa based championships for 4.5 years now. You think I'd finally have got to grips with its little foibles, but I haven't. And of course, we await Assetto Corsa 2, the successor coming out in the not too distant future. So that'll be exciting stuff as we see some exciting stuff here. Andy Carroll against Alex Walker. Again, a nice textbook move. Alex left in the room. Down the inside goes Andy Carroll up into P6. Oh, as they both follow each other off the track actually and decide that they want to do some a bit of a joke lap there. They do get back underway though, and no spins or anything of the sort, which is good to see.
Yeah, tap wide there. Obviously, we've got all the photographic evidence here, like the real world with Jonathan Palmer's MSV tracks having the sensors and the cameras and all this stuff going on. But all is fair and all is looked at. And Monday nights, as we say, generally, if you do look at the website for the amended results, then it's worth having a look in on Tuesday just to see how things go. But by and large, I think things are pretty standard. We did get a little bit of a curveball, though, didn't we? Because Johnny Ogden had a time penalty, won the race 2 last week, still had a time penalty, and still won. And we were just and another one, Thomas Potter running very wide there, but back on.
Sorry to all of the Thomas Potter enthusiasts in the chat, but we saw nothing. We saw nothing. Yes,
Rich Hayden's got it recorded though.
And yeah, thank you for noting that, Richard, because you saved me from declaring that Johnny Ogden wasn't victor after the previous rounds at race 2 because he had a penalty. But you quite rightly corrected me, and that was he was still victor despite his penalty, which makes it even more impressive.
You were right anyway, because he did get a penalty, so you were right. You never got round to saying he didn't win. So
I was right at that stage. Had I declared him not victor, it would have been I would have had a tail between my legs there. But thank you for setting me on that one.
I've done far worse mistakes, believe you me. Let's have a look. So Eric Axelson, P8, he is going to be the attention now is going to be on Alex Walker. So Alex, having been passed by Andy Carroll, will now find Eric Axelson in his mirrors again. I'm sure he probably had a little bit of that earlier on, so we'll see whether the Flying Swede could get another point. This is very much looking like Eric's dropped around, doesn't it? But a podium and an 8th, it's none too shabby. And a lot of the other drivers, that a podium and an 8th, if we look at last week's results, probably would have put him in the top 3 last week.
Yeah, still a fantastic effort nonetheless. Let's not take that away from him. It's just, I even got the impression when we were interviewing him, P3 in qualifying, P2 in the race, there was that hint of disappointment in his voice. Really, he was saying, "I've got to be." He was almost convincing himself, "I've got to be pleased with this one." He was, because at the end of the day, as we say, still good results. It's just not where the man leading the championship wishes to be. And while he is leading the championship, we do of course have 2 drop rounds we mentioned, so he's not leading the championship by a huge margin in terms of points at this stage. As we get closer to the halfway mark, which we'll be at, of course, once the checkered flag drops after this race. But as it gets later on, we could start to see that the championship still spicing up later on.
Oh, it will for sure. I think the perverse thing about drop scores is, of course, if you have a bad one this time, it actually extends his championship lead out from 7 points to something bigger. So he'll go away with a bigger grin on his face because he's got a bigger championship lead. But of course, he's got to maintain the form towards the end. It is all tactical, isn't it? And this is tactical as well. He's having a good look here at Alex Walker, who's driven a good race here as Alex. It's still Blakey from Buckner with a potentially a 1 and a 2 at this meeting, which is a fine result if that happens. But we're on board with the championship leader, looking to try and challenge for 7th place. He's had some rotten luck so far today, just hasn't quite fallen for him, but still in the points and picking things up. Oh no, my second screen's just given up the ghost, and I should have put it on charge. So we'll just have I'm down to one screen. Just call me one screen Neil now.
AOC, get on that. Sorry, AGON. As we see Eric Axelsen having a look, seeing if he can make it stick around the outside. He tends to prefer the wider lines here at this circuit, and this is a track, actually, that Eric has said he really quite enjoys. The last time out at Donington, all of our drivers who didn't enjoy the track weren't having a good time, but as we get back onto the start-finish straight, there's only a few seconds left.
4 seconds remaining, and crosses the line, so we are on to the last lap, and again, could have probably done... It was very close, wasn't it? And should have done what Scott Bugler was thinking in race 1, maybe just could do without another lap. And Scott has got that gap down from 5 seconds when I last checked on the lead gap to just over a second. So we might have, there's the outside chance of a challenge for the lead and maybe an overtake before we get to the end, as Axelsen and Walker still very much hard at it down the straight. Axelsen, is he going to take the wide line here? Yeah, Walker does as well. So this has been a super job from Alex Walker, defending this P7. And he's not given up any places easily. He hasn't rolled over and had his tummy tickled by any stretch of the imagination. And has fought for every place that he's got. Meanwhile, back to our leader. Here is Chris Blakey. Out front from Scott Bugner. Is Bugner going to make it a double? Maybe a little bit too far back, but a 1 and a 2 will be a super result for him.
Absolutely. Got to be one of the highlights in terms of reverse grid race performances. It has been a mega from Scott Bugner. Likewise, Thomas Potter as well. Chris Blakey really made it work with that fantastic move down into turn 1. As we said, perhaps a little bit more elbows out than you'd expect for a reverse grid race start, but the strategy worked. You know, he was able to stay clear of the chaos, and if he hadn't have made that slight lunge into turn 1, he would have been in the midst of all of that mess. So he's really done well. That start of the race, I think, has won him this race.
I think so too. It's been an absolutely fine drive, isn't it? Scott Bugner has had 2 fine drives, and he's up into P2, and will be scoring some decent points here over Eric Axelsen. Still down in 8th place, challenging Alex Walker, but not there. But it is Chris Blakey who is going to add to the wins that he's had in recent times with the club in the BMW, the Minis that he's had before, one at Croft. So he will be doing that and takes the checkered flag. Well done to Chris. Scott Bugner in P2. It's going to be Craig Curtis for 3rd place. Thomas Potter still trying to close in, and another few laps for Thomas would have done him proud. But it's going to be Craig Curtis who takes P3. Thomas Potter with an excellent 4th place. Johnny Ogden next up. And go on the late night coffee now. Cardy in 5th position from Andy Carroll. Alex Walker in 7th from Eric Axelsen. How are they going to cross the line side by side? And Walker hangs on to it from Axelsen in 8th. Andy Dorman will be in 9th position. He does take 9th, and it's going to be a top 10, I think, for Olivia Krasnovska, who will be next across the line in the yellow and black 899 car. There is Olivia, with Catherine Potter getting a little bit closer in the closing stages, taking 11th from Josh Martin, who's had a very quiet day. We haven't heard from Josh at all today. Lee Piercy next up from John Jones. 2 good races, thoroughly enjoyed it again, and we'll catch up with our top 3 after this quick break.
Well, So concludes another fantastic round of racing here for the VRRC. The Nurburgring GP circuit certainly delivered. But now we get to have a chat with our front runners from race 2, that reverse grid race then. So up first, we have Mr. Craig Curtis, P3, after and a cracking job as well. Craig, how's it feel out there?
Here we go. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Hey.
Sorry, yeah. I was muting everything for some reason. I left the chat and then rejoined. Yeah, sorry. I did hear your question. Yeah, lap 1 was hairy, to say the least. I'm not sure what happened in turn 1. I made a cracking start. I was up, I think, to P5 by turn 1. And then, yeah, I just saw a car. I think it was Josh potentially going over the top, so I'm not sure if he was tagged or whatever. But yeah, managed to regroup, and yeah, race 2s, I always love them, but it's a good, nice adrenaline rush.
Must feel good as well in terms of the championship. It's a good haul of points there, of course. Missing around earlier on, I've slowly been progressing through and building up those good results, and this just the momentum must be building, surely.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously now throughout the championships that we've done together, it's all about the consistency. You know, it's all well and good having, you know, a good race 1 and then a bad race 2 or vice versa. So you have to aim for consistency. At least my target now is just for top 4 every race. You know, race 1, race 2, just get a good haul of points and see where we are at the end. But I didn't think I would get the podium at the end. Mr. Potter was at my back bottom again, like he was last week. So yeah, it was. I managed to hold him off with about a lap left. So, but yeah, as for catching the front 2, it was a tall order.
I was just going to ask, actually, it looked like a cracking battle out there with Thomas Potter. We saw the positions trading around on a few occasions, but you did win out on top. It was a good fun out there.
It was, yeah. And in all fairness, this was a good track for overtaking compared to, you know, like Donington last week. It was a bit narrow. There were only a couple of overtaking spots, but yeah, Nurburgring GP track is, yeah, it's anywhere on the lap. You can just go 3-4 wide and squeaky bum time. So yeah, it's been fun. Looking forward to next week.
I was going to say, next week will mark when we cross over the halfway stage of the championship as well. Well, officially, we're kind of there already. Are you now fully up to speed with this touring car, front wheel drive, 300 and something horsepower through the front wheels? Are you comfortable with it in comparison to the 135?
I am, yes. I think I said a while back that I do prefer front wheel drive slightly. They're just easier to handle, and I mean the driving style is completely different. But like I said earlier, after quali, the extra ballast added on earlier in the week, I hadn't had a chance to drive the car until this evening, so that took a little bit of sort of getting used to. So hopefully a few more laps over the weekend now for next week's race, and I'll be up there again.
Good stuff. Well, looking forward to seeing you out there next week. Thank you very much for your time, Craig Curtis. Congratulations on the podium.
Thank you, Reeve. Appreciate it.
So then,
Well done, Craig.
moving on. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that, Reeve. Yeah, well done, Craig, and well done too to our second place driver. A 1 and a 2, very nearly a perfect weekend, virtual weekend, of course we have to say. Scott Bugner, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I wasn't expecting that one. Like I said, I followed the brake lights and it all went Pete Tong at turn 1, to be honest. Cars were scattering everywhere. Then the next minute, the cars kind of parted ways and I went straight for the middle and I was like, oh, I'm up to 6th. Here we go. Lovely. And then, yeah, just picked my way through and, yeah, no, I'd say Chris was just that bit too far in front. He had a really good pace, so well done to him. I kind of got myself in a foot by helping him with a setup before the race. But no, it's what it's all about. We all help each other and we want to get the best out of the cars. And, you know, for sure at one point I might struggle him and Chris will go, you go, have a go on mine and we'll see what happens. But no, really, really good. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, so and without a doubt, your best round. So I hope this is like momentum that will carry forward for you. But fifth podium of the campaign, and that is not shabby at all, is it? I mean, you know, you're very clearly going to be the provisional round winner for us this weekend. When are you back out in the real world? When's the next MG outing? I'm
actually meant to be at Donington Park this weekend with the truck.
Right.
But sponsors have pulled out and just it hasn't quite gone to plan. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to be out at Snetterton next month, which is the final round of the year. So this is just going to be a part-time year this year, but my dad's got a car as well, so I think we're going to share the weekend and do a race each and have a bit of fun in the last round of the championship next month.
Oh, that's good that you're going to get back out and share. Lad and dad time is fantastic. So great to that. Have you done anything at Lime Rock? Because that's where we are next time.
No, I haven't. I don't even think I've driven the track, to be honest. I might once I get on the track go, oh yeah, I remember this, but no, I couldn't even tell you what way the first corner goes from memory, so that'll be fun to go out on. But yeah, no, I haven't actually. It looks like a good track, looking at the map of it. So it'd be interesting. It'd be one that I need to learn. So it looks like it will do some good racing as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I've not even looked at it yet, so I'm looking forward to next Wednesday for sure, and we look forward to seeing you there. Before we go, you probably heard the preamble when you're in the sort of waiting bit here. We've got to say congratulations, Scott. We've awarded you driver of the round, by the way, today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Well, you don't
it.
have to thank us. You're the guy that did the business on track. So very well done. Super job. Congratulations on the first win in this series and a P2 and pole position. Wasn't really anyone else that it could have gone to, but good luck for the testing at Lime Rock. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yeah, hope you feature next week. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Which brings us on to our race to victor there, Mr. Chris Blake. Congratulations on the top step. How did it feel?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, even though I'm surprised. I was just looking at the delta and looking at the gap between Scott, and I was just thinking, he's coming. How long? Just trying to do maths in my head. I've gone, if I keep this pace, he's going to catch me on the last lap. Is he going to catch me on the last lap? It was, whilst it may be boring, just being out on your tour, it was stressful. It was a lot of work. Good race though, really pleased, really chuffed. First race went a fair bit wrong, but hey oh.
I can imagine you must be pleased with that, especially given that it must be fairly confidence inspiring almost to in the end have the measure on the likes of Scott Buckner, who has had the measure on the likes of Eric Axelson this week. You've come out on top, so is that kind of spurring you on a bit as we head later into the season?
Yeah, definitely. I said the times are so close, and I've been getting slowly towards the top. And I've got to say, Scott, thanks to Scott for his setup. we were chatting, and I was just like, I don't know if I've gone the wrong way. Hey, have a go with this one. Yeah, it's all right. That. Yeah. He may regret that now. So I have a beer or two, I think. But yeah, it was. I'm pleased to be kind of heading up there. It's a good race, and me and Craig were having a cracking battle in the first race, but physics decided not to like me and send me to the moon.
Oh yes, we saw that. The Chris Blakey space program was.
Yeah. Me and Elon Musk were having a race. So yeah, it was.
Oh well, hopefully you'll win that one.
I do. That ended spectacularly. So.
Yeah. So really, what to me seemed to make a lot of the difference. Not to take away from your really strong pace there, but turn one, lap one, where you just took it down the inside, and you seem to be the only survivor. What was that like from your perspective?
I was chuffed with that. I thought I got a good start because these things can be a bit of a nightmare to start. I don't like the launch control, so you just got to balance it on the clutch, get the boost right, just send it. And I thought, right, I've got a good run. I was like, ooh, the first two braking a little bit earlier. I was like, oh, okay, let's see where we can go. I'll just feather the brakes in. I was like, right, okay, I'm at the apex, and then I just saw carnage. I had the timing screen up on my fourth monitor, and it just lit up with collisions. I was like, yeah, just run away, just look forward, not backward, look forward, look backwards. Off I ran, and managed to get a big enough gap, and then I saw Scott pop into second. It was like, oh, here we go, got my work cut out for me now. So yeah, it was good. It was real good fun though.
Glad to hear that you enjoyed yourself, and hopefully you'll be enjoying yourself next week as well. Lime Rock Park, a bit of a different venue, quite far away. What are your thoughts heading into that round?
Good question. I can't remember the last time I drove that on a any game at all. To be honest with you, obviously never driven there for real, unfortunately. But I can't remember the last time I've driven around there. So I'm downloading the track as we speak and get some laps in as soon as possible. Trying to familiarise myself. So.
Fantastic stuff. Well, hopefully the practice goes well for you, Chris. And thank you very much for your time after your well-deserved race victory.
No worries. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the commentary, and we'll see you guys later.
Well done, Chris. Thanks to Reeve Taylor for doing the honours there for 3 and 1. When people talk about places called Salisbury, I think the nearest racetrack to Salisbury that I know is Thruxton. It's not that far away from Salisbury in England, but Salisbury in Connecticut is the home of the track you're looking at here, and that's where we're going to be next Wednesday, 14th of August, Lakeville, USA. Salisbury, little hamlet, which is where the place is. Some great names there. They pretty much do what they say. Big Bend, the S's, the no-name straight, the back straight, West Bend, all pretty straightforward. I think the racing will be far from straightforward, and we're looking forward to that. Testing is already, I think, underway. Join us. Be nice to each other, as ever. From Reef Taylor, and myself, Richard John Neal, thanks ever so much for watching, and look forward to your company again next week.
Thank you very much.
Between the two of them. The inside of Coates. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Woo!